Hi, everyone. I'm Catherine Seo, co-director of the Lipedema Project with my colleague, Leslyn Keith.
Hi, everyone. It's so great to be here with you.
And the wonders of technology that we can join you. I'm actually in Italy presenting at a conference, and Leslyn is in the San Francisco Bay Area. And you guys are all in Sheffield, and that the wonders of technology can make it all happen here and now. So our presentation today is really on something that we think is promising. That's how I'm talking about it these days, which is the ketogenic way of eating for lipedema and lymphedema and lymphatic disorders of all kinds, actually, and other things too. But I'm very excited about some of the results. So a couple of things, because it's a short presentation, it's only 40 minutes, we'll have time to go into a lot about this, but at a superficial level. We will be doing a more in-depth Q&A later today, and Sherry will give you all those details. And so if you have questions as we go along, jot them down and come to our Q&A. Or if that's not possible, email us. So keep calm and keto on. Our agenda, a little bit about us and how Leslyn and I connected, a little bit about keto. What about the research? When I talk a little bit about how Leslyn and I met, you'll understand more about how the research got started. And then we'll look at, well, does it really work with lipedema and lymphedema? And what might you want to do from here? So I'm co-director of the Lipedema Project. Feel free to take my info. Feel free to email me. I'm always happy to respond. I've worked with Sherry since the very beginning, November 2012. And so we've come quite a ways with all of this. And I'm pleased to say that lipedema is no longer the hidden unknown entity that it once was. And it's from the work of, that we've done, that Lipedema UK has done, and numerous other groups.
And I'm Leslyn Keith. I'm an occupational therapist and a certified lymphedema therapist. And I recently got my doctorate and specialized in lymphedema and obesity. And that's where I did my research. And now I'm the director of research with the Lipedema Project, and thrilled to be working with Catherine and all the exciting things we're doing with ketogenic way of eating.
It really is exciting. So let me tell you. So Leslyn and I met at the National Institutes of Health. In the US, the NIH is pretty much the epicenter of everything having to do with research in health, mental health, every kind of health. Well, with the work of LEARN, the Lymphatic Education and Research Network, and a number of doctors and real efforting, the very first conference called the Third Circulation, Lymphatics as Regulators in Health and Disease Symposium was held at NIH, which was in Bethesda, Maryland, September 29th and 30th in 2015. So it's going back just about 2 years. And Leslyn was presenting there, and this is what she was presenting. She had a poster session where she was presenting her research on lymphedema and the ketogenic way of eating and the results. I was walking around, I took one look at this and I went, I won't tell you what I said, but it was basically, it was, holy cow, look at this. And Leslyn and I started to engage in conversation, and I said, do you know about lipedema? So that started us in a long, ongoing conversation. She was finishing up her research, and I actually was headed to the Foldy Clinic, where I spent a lot of 2016. And I was excited about the possibilities that I saw with Leslyn's research. She's really brilliant. It's really exciting. She also embarrasses easily. Anyway, so when I was in Germany, for a couple of reasons. One is I was getting treatment at the Foldy Clinic. I was also working on research there. I was also working on the book that just came out on lipedema, which I'll give you some information at the end of the presentation. And so I was doing a summit, and I asked if Leslyn would be an interviewee. So she was one of the people I interviewed for the Lipedema Summit, which was in May. I think it was June. It was in June of 2016. And then I wanted to do a webinar. I had promised people a webinar. So I said to Leslyn, what about a webinar on keto? And so we did. In August of 2016, the woman on your right is Katrina. I'll talk a little bit about her. She lost 200 pounds. She's a lipedema lady. She lost 200 pounds on keto. And the woman on your left is Kim, and she lost, I think she's up to 160 or 70 pounds so far on the ketogenic diet. And so the four of us did a webinar the summer of 2016. And basically, Leslyn talked a lot about what is keto. She's going to repeat some of that for you today. And both Katrina and Kim told their stories. And I sort of wandered around saying, I think low carb is a good thing. So when we finished the webinar, there was interest. In fact, there was a lot of interest. This was in August of 2016. And so I got emails from a couple of lippy ladies who had had some really significant success. And we talked about it, and we said, let's try doing an online class. So in September, we started an online class. We had 4 classes. We had September, December, and then in 2017, we had a class in January and another one in June. Additionally, because we started to see results, and I'll show you some of those results, we said, what if we got a group of women and we basically got anecdotal information from them, that we would have an exploration study of sorts, and we would come up with some information, at least enough to go to someone and say, we'd like to do a full-blown clinical trial. So that's how we got started. Additionally, Leslyn and I were having such a good time with all of this. By January of 2017, we decided to do a summit. So the two of us interviewed literally, I think we had in the end 40 of the top experts, literally in the world, on the ketogenic way of eating. And it really isn't a diet. It really is a way of eating. And Leslyn will explain more about it. So this is Katrina. Katrina lost 200 pounds, which is the equivalency of about 14 stone. So she said, I failed at dieting for 34 years and never understood the concept of not cheating until she grasped the idea of addiction and knew that moderation, her excuse for cheating, and addiction could not go hand in hand. So it's pretty amazing, but Katrina has not had any cheating for, I think she's at 3 years now. And she works through an organization called ketovangelist.com. Very worthwhile if you're interested in knowing more about her and about the Ketovangelist way of it, and the keto way of eating. And so what happened is we started to get all of these reports from different women and pictures. So this is someone from Canada who she wrote this in May. So we had started in September, and women started to hear about it. It started to spread through the lipedema community, and women started to join our classes. So 3 months keto way of eating only, stage 2 lipedema, she's down 40 pounds, and look at the difference. So we started to get encouraged. And here's someone, dramatic difference. She says, this really works. The photo on the left is today, the right is last summer. I had so much inflammation. By the time I got home from work, I couldn't get out of the car. So she goes on to say, she started keto the end of 2016, and in 4 months she lost 30 pounds and all of her inflammation resolved, are enough to make a huge difference. And this is Kim. You can see she started out at over 400 pounds, and now she's, in fact, I think she just broke 200, and she's at something like 197. And so, and Kim's been at it for a longer though. She started, I think, in 2015. So she's been at it for a much longer time. This is Megan. She's lost 50 plus pounds, around 3.5 stone. And you can see the difference in her, how much alive she is. And this is Mendy. She lost over 60 pounds. And again, you can see the difference. She sent this picture because she was in a shoe store trying on sandals, she says, for the first time in over 30 years. The other thing that Mendy sent us, and I don't have a picture of that, is that she was able to wear her wedding rings. She couldn't fit into her wedding rings because of all the swelling. And I think this one is so telling. This is a woman from Texas. She just sent this to me. I feel the best I've ever felt in my life. No meds. Blood pressure before was 146/77. Now it's 108/60. Her cholesterol and triglycerides are both in normal range. She when I talked to her, she said to me, I couldn't get out of the house before. And now you can't stop me. I'm ready to go in a moment's notice. She says, I'm going to be 65 and I feel like I have a whole new life. She's lost over 100 pounds. She started, I think she started in 2015 as well. And then she hooked up with us. She had done keto and then had a stall for almost a year, but she hung in there. And then she joined up with us and her stall, resolved. And she's obviously, as you can tell, has lost weight, more weight. So we are in the process of looking at ketogenic specifically for lipedema and lymphedema, so for lymphatic disorders. So these are the covers of a couple of guides that we're in the process of putting together. So I'll talk a little more about this at the end. But I think what you're probably most interested in at this point is what is keto and what might it do? So I'm going to turn it over to Leslyn.
Okay, so a ketogenic way of eating is a very low carbohydrate, moderate protein, high fat way of eating. And that's very different from the standard way of eating. The standard way that we eat typically is a very high carbohydrate. And when we talk in the Q&A session later today, we can talk about specifically what are those foods, what is that going to look like, what are carbs, what are proteins, what are fats. But this is going to be quite a different way of eating for many of you because we have been traditionally told to stay away from fats and eat mostly a plant-based diet. And if you have meats at all, it's going to be very lean meats. So this is quite different in that way. But by eating this way, you shift your body from sugar burning, because that's what carbs are. They break down into sugar. You stop using sugar for fuel and you start using fat for fuel. And so if you want to start burning the fat that's stored on your body and even probably lipedema fat, then you need to eat fat to be a fat burner. And so we started collecting anecdotal evidence for this way of eating and how it can work for people with lipedema. We were not sure if it was going to get the lipedema fat as well. And that's still the point of our research that we're going to be engaging in. It seems, as Catherine says, very promising. From what we can tell so far, it's getting the lipedema fat as well. A lot of the women, we see that they still have that same general shape, although they are losing fat on the lower body as well as the upper body. And traditional way of dieting, a very low fat, low calorie way of eating, you would only lose fat on the upper body. And so now we're seeing that actually have an impact on the lower body as well. So what we have seen in past research, the ketogenic diet has been studied for a century. And what we can see from past research that it has a beneficial effect on many conditions. The most early research was done on epilepsy. Traditionally, this way of eating was used to manage seizures in children. And so the earliest research that I found was 1938. They were publishing on the results of 12 years of using this way of eating with children with epilepsy. But then you see that there's also, they've continued to do the research, so there's continued papers that are out there on how this is still one of the best non-medication ways of dealing with epilepsy. And then cancer, a lot of exciting stuff happening right now with cancer, finding that most cancers, they can only use sugar for fuel. And when we limit the sugar and we just provide fat, the cancer can't metabolize the fat. And so this is pretty spectacular what we're being able to see right now for managing cancer. Hyperlipidemia, which is basically high cholesterol. You would think eating a lot of fat that you would now have a lot of fat in your blood. Not the case. It's amazing what happens with this way of eating in randomized controlled trials. And I show you a couple that are listed here, that when we compare this way of eating with other ways of eating, the triglycerides go down, the LDL, the so-called bad cholesterol, goes down, the HDL, the so-called good cholesterol, goes up. So your lipid profile improves on this way of eating. And then we look at cardiovascular disease, because again, we were afraid of eating fat mainly for our heart. It turns out that eating fat has no detrimental effect on cardiovascular disease. On people who have heart disease, it doesn't cause heart disease. So we're seeing now in research that it's actually a good way of eating to protect our heart. Definitely the best management for type 2 diabetes, as we're seeing now, is this way of eating. It can definitely manage your blood sugar so you essentially don't have diabetes at that point. If you start eating carbs again, well, then you get diabetes again. But this can definitely manage it, again, without medication. Every randomized controlled trial is showing, as far as weight loss, this way of eating is superior for weight loss. And we are seeing it also with many neurological conditions, MS, Alzheimer's, ALS. This is also going to be beneficial for those. And so what our question is, what about lymphatic diseases? There has been no research on using this way of eating for lymphatic conditions. And so I did a small study on it for lymphedema, and now we also want to look at lipedema. So when I was started to do my background for my study, I looked at what the literature that was out there, and definitely there was an increased risk for lymphedema if the person was obese. And when there was weight loss, then the size of the limb would reduce. And so then also, as I mentioned, all the randomized controlled trials are showing that a ketogenic way of eating leads to the most effective and meaningful weight loss. And so there was nothing on lymphatic disorders, but this seemed to lead me to believe that this could be something that could work. So my hypothesis was, for my study, weight loss using a ketogenic diet would significantly impact lymphedema and quality of life. And so I started with my research questions were, would weight loss impact lymphedema in someone who is obese? And could this best be done with a low carbohydrate ketogenic diet? And would that end up with improved quality of life? And would a group treatment model be the most effective way to help people change their lifestyle, including implementing a ketogenic way of eating? So this is my study design. Basically, it was a 12-week group sessions where I had once a week group sessions, as well as they could meet with me once for 30 minutes every 2 weeks individually. And so I had 12 people that were enrolled in the study. 2 people withdrew, so that the 10 people remaining went through the post-intervention testing. And then for a very short period of sustainability, I tested them all again 30 days later to see how they were still doing. Here is my group. So I had started out with those 12 people that were over 66, so Medicare age, and 11 women and 1 man. That is typical of most diet studies. We seem to have more participation with women. The average weight was 237 pounds. Sorry, I don't know what that is in kilograms. I should have did that for you. And then, so BMI was about 38. Waist circumference, 113 centimeters or 44.5 inches. Percent body fat was an average of almost 41%. And for women, we really want that to be between 20 and 30%. So that was well above what it should be. And most of the participants had swelling in both legs. So I had 10 outcome measures, actually. So I did a body composition scale for weight, percent body fat, and BMI. Of course, I measured their limbs to do limb volume. I had 3 quality of life measures, did the waistline measure, and then we did the Canadian Occupational Performance Measure to look at ADLs, activities of daily living, and their performance levels and their satisfaction with how they were performing those tasks. So here's my results. So I wanted to show you the individual results because it was such a small group. And by questioning the participants, it turned out that 6 of them decided to implement the diet and 4 did not. So in the blue, you see that's the ketogenic diet group. And in red, that's the non-ketogenic diet group. And so the 6 participants that did implement the diet, of course, lost substantially more weight, about a little over 18 pounds mean weight loss. But you can see that 4 out of the 6 lost, 19 pounds or more. And then the people who did not use the ketogenic way of eating, the most loss was 3.5 pounds, and 1 person each actually gained a little bit of weight. And then for limb volume reduction, so now what happened to their swelling? And again, it was much more significant weight loss in the ketogenic diet group. So 4 out of the 6 lost over 1,100 milliliters. And we had 1 outlier in the non-ketogenic diet group, but largely they lost very little, and some actually had an increase in limb volume in that group. And the last one I'm showing you here now is the lymphedema life impact change. So there is, Jan Weiss has a scale, the lymphedema life impact scale, and it in the person self-rates how much their lymphedema is impacting their life. And so when you see that the ketogenic diet group in blue, you see that they are reporting quite a decrease in impact of lymphedema on their life. Everybody in the group had a decreased impact, and some quite significant, with going 41 or 37 points down. Whereas the non-ketogenic diet group in red, you can see 2 people even had an increased impact of lymphedema on their life. So quite a difference between the 2 groups for even such a small period of time, only 3 months in this study, and quite a difference between the 2 groups. And these, I had objective and subjective measures. So when you talk about something like this scale right here, that's a self-report measure. But I'm also, they're getting on the body composition scale, we're measuring their waistline, their limbs, so that's very objective measures. So I think it was quite significant, albeit a very small sample size. So next we wanted to find out, well, what would happen with lipedema? We were able to find out a little bit with a very small study with lymphedema, but we really wanted to explore now lipedema. Catherine's going to talk to you a little bit about what we're doing.
So I mentioned all of this earlier, that we started with the summit interview in the spring of 2016, had the webinar in the summer, the online classes, and then a sort of exploration study about the feasibility, can lipedema work with keto? So what we decided is, well, will it work with lipedema? So we started with the hypothesis, a ketogenic diet will have a positive impact on weight, pain, and quality of life for women with lipedema. And we asked a couple of research questions. Can women with lipedema lose weight and decrease lower body girth and pain using a ketogenic diet way of eating? Will self-reported quality of life be correlated with weight loss and decrease in pain measures? Will positive impact on study outcomes measures be correlated with adherence to a ketogenic way of eating? Basically, will there be weight loss? Will there be volume reduction? Will there be pain reduction? Will there be an increase in quality of life? And we have anecdotal results. And I say anecdotal because we are in the process of putting together a clinical trial, because we really do want to document this, because the anecdotal results have been pretty stunning and promising. That's my word, promising. Mm-hmm. So I have to say, no plan of eating will work for 100% of the people 100% of the time. It's not a magic wand. It works for some people. Those that it works for, it's really pretty stunning. And there are some people that it doesn't work for in the way that they would hope. So I want to be very clear about that. We have seen weight loss, volume reduction, pain reduction, and quality of life increase. So we'll leave it up to you to decide. Does a keto way of eating work with lipedema? So we'll share a couple of stories with you. So this is Valeria. She's from Rome, and she posted this for us just a couple of days ago. As you can see, the photo on the top, she has significant lipedema fat in her upper arms, like many of us. And then she posted, this was, I believe it was a month or two after she started a ketogenic way of eating. And she has reported that she's really happy with this.
This is another person that had posted actually a while ago, and she is saying nothing but the way she's eating. She lost 77 pounds, not exercise, just diet. And you can see the typical shape in her legs, and she even has some abdominal obesity as well. And the huge change that was made in weight loss. But she also had a lot of information also about how her life has improved as far as just pain and all kinds of other stuff. So sometimes pictures really tell a lot.
And the thing that struck me about this particular set of pictures is that many of us wonder, well, is this going to affect lipedema fat? We know that we can affect change in non-lipedema fat, but what about lipedema fat? And this was one of the pictures when I saw it. I said to Leslyn, look, I think that this can work. Look, there's a change in her lipedema fat. Yeah.
Yep.
And this is, Melinda sent me these pictures literally just a couple of days ago, and she worked doing the lipedema plan for, I think she's 9 months in now. And so this was her second operation. This is post-op. And this was over a year ago. This is before she started keto. She had a couple of different operations with a surgeon in Australia. This was 8 weeks post-op. And here was her third operation. And this was 5 weeks post-op. And the reason she sent me these pictures is that as she's been on keto for quite a number of months, she just had another surgery in July. And this was 4 weeks post-op. She couldn't believe it. She was like, oh my God, this keto thing is really a good thing. It was stunning.
Yeah. So you can see that keto is excellent for wound healing. But this is also shows something else that's very important, because sometimes you can do this way of eating and your scale will not move at all. And so you say, okay, it doesn't work for me. But there are other things happening, and that's why we always look for what we call those NSVs, non-scale victories. So when you look at Carmen here, and 3 weeks apart, And she didn't lose any weight at all, but wow, stunning difference in the way her body looks, and I would guess probably the way it feels. So she is making improvements and changes. She's healing, but it doesn't show on the scale. I think that's so important to remember. If you decide to try this way of eating, it's not all about what the number is on the scale.
And that's really important because as I said, this may not work for everybody. I've had a very difficult year. I've had some physical challenges. I've been in physical therapy. I've had some profound inflammation issues. And I didn't think I had much movement. I lost a little bit of weight, I've lost maybe 12, 14 pounds because it fluctuates a little bit. But it's taken me almost a year, and I get discouraged, and I think, oh, I'm not doing it right, blah, blah, blah. And then my friend Jacinta just came to visit. She's, while I'm in Italy, she's house sitting and watching the cats and all that kind of good stuff, and hopefully getting some rest here. And she walked in, and the first thing she said is, oh my God, you look so different. Because she had seen me when I was quite swollen after my surgery and after being really ill. She said my face was like a moon. And so it's good to take pictures. That was the thing. I actually went back and took a look at the pictures, and I went, I think she's right. I think it is working. So I just throw that in because I think it's an important thing because as much as we're excited about all this, we're also realistic, and we are also looking for scientific evidence. So Sherry has scheduled us to do a live Q&A, whatever your questions are. Oh my God, look, my face is even thinner than when we did this.
Yes, you can really see the difference.
You can really see the difference.
Yes, you can.
Oh my God, this is a moment. You can all applaud. I can't believe that. I can really see the difference. Okay, this just made my day. So we did that a couple months ago. We that's a photo from.
It's like, and I think April was when that was done.
Yeah, that was a while ago. Oh my God, I'm really happy. Okay. So we're doing a live Q&A here at the conference. It will be at 14:30 to 15:15, which is 2:30 to 3:15 here in Western time. And Sherry will give you info as to where and however she's gonna set it up. So we wanted you to know that. We also want to give you some additional information because, if there's something you want to know more about, a couple of things. The book, part of what I was doing in Europe last year is I was writing a book with 9 other amazing authors, some of the top people in the field. And that book is now out. You can get information on the Lipedema Project website. And as you know, many of you know, maybe you don't, but the documentary, The Disease They Call Fat, is still available. And there's more information specifically about diet and lifestyle for lymphatic disorders on the Learn website. It's lymphaticnetwork.org. And it's a symposium that Leslyn did. She did 1 week, and Dr. Eric Westman, who is an expert in the field of ketogenic along many different disorders. He has a clinic where they work with diabetes as well. He did a symposium, and that is available free of charge on the Lymphatic Network. And we have a Facebook group. At this point, we have close to 5,400 members. And it's free, it's on Facebook, and it's a wonderful, supportive group. And we've had lots of results, and you're more than welcome to join us. It's called Lipedema and Keto Way of Eating. You can just do a search in Facebook, come join us. We also have a very special community. It's called the Keto Mentoring Community for Lipedema and Keto Way of Eating. And that is on a website called keto.lipedemaproject.org. There is a small monthly membership fee for this. It is small, it's very individualized attention, and there's a lot of perks and bonuses. For instance, the summit that we did is available free of charge if you're a member of this community, along with various and sundry other offerings from the Lipedema Project. So we've been having a wonderful community feeling develop. And so you're more than welcome to join us. And all the information is on the keto.lipedemaproject.org website. And here's our contact information. We're both really good at getting back to people. I often get this, they say, oh, you got back to me so quickly. Now I'm in Italy, and I will be home on the 17th. So this is the 15th. So, you know, I'll be traveling tomorrow. Give me a little bit of time, but if you want, just email me.
Mm-hmm.
And thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for allowing us to present about this topic. I look forward to seeing you and answering questions and giving you more details about exactly what to eat and how this may benefit you at our Q&A session later.
Okay, we'll see you shortly.